The Ice Age was a land ruled by silence. Bitter winds swept across frozen plains, carrying the scent of unseen predators. Small tribes clung to survival, gathering around fragile fires that offered little warmth. There were no words, only gestures, cries, and raw sounds to warn of danger or call for help. Without speech, memories vanished with each passing season. Lessons were relearned, often painfully, as survival meant living moment to moment. The silence was not only physical, but cultural. Emptiness where stories could not yet exist. Humanity endured, waiting for its first voice to emerge. The mammoth falls after days of pursuit, and victory fills the air with shouts of relief. Yet before long, silence returns. A hunter lies dead, taken by the cold or a lurking beast, and grief grips the camp. These moments of triumph, of loss, of fear are too powerful to vanish with the passing wind. But the people have no words, no lasting language to carry them forward. At night, firelight becomes their stage. They dance the hunt, they stamp the rhythm of pursuit, they mimic the charge of lions. For a moment, the tribe relives what was won and what was lost. But when the flames die and gestures fade, the stories disappear. This emptiness stirs a hunger deeper than survival. They begin to crave permanence, a way to hold memory beyond a single breath. The spark of remembrance flickers, urging them toward a mark that will endure. Something stronger than voice or movement. Survival is no longer enough. They need memory. The fire crackles, its light spilling across rough stone. Shadows leap and twist, shaping the outlines of beasts charging across the cave wall. A hunter pauses, staring, as the flicker seems to bring the animals back to life. Others gather, their eyes wide, caught between fear and wonder. In that glow, stone is no longer silent. It becomes a canvas alive with possibility. A thought stirs. If the wall can hold shadows, perhaps it can hold memory. Perhaps it can carry the hunt, the danger, the triumph. Beyond this night. In that moment, something shifts forever. Survival finds a voice, and the first sparks of storytelling through image are born. A torch lifts high, smoke curling into the cavern's air. Fingers coated in ash and earth press firmly against the stone, leaving behind a silhouette that will outlive its maker. In the fire's flicker, the imprint breathes with life. More than a stain on rock, it is proof of presence, of belonging. It speaks without words, carrying memory where sound cannot travel. One hand becomes every hand, the mark of a people declaring, "We were here." In that single gesture, silence breaks, and humanity discovers its first lasting voice. The walls of stone begin to change, no longer bare, but alive with shapes of bison, horses, and the hunters who chase them. Each stroke carries more than memory. It holds warning, guidance, and hope. Children learn through the images. Hunters find courage in them. What began as survival becomes something greater. Imagination. In this firelit gallery, humanity takes its first step into culture. The silence breaks, and storytelling is born, etched forever into shadow and stone. Beneath the hunter's feet, the earth held more than food and shelter. It held the seeds of art. From iron-rich clay, early hands pulled red ochre, the color of blood and life. from the blackened remains of fire, they gathered charcoal, a shadow that could be shaped. Yellow shimmered from stone, scraped and ground into powder. Mixed with animal fat, these pigments clung to cave walls, refusing to fade with time. Tools were simple, yet ingenious twigs dipped in color, feathers brushed across stone, and hollow bones used to spray pigment in a soft mist. Nothing was wasted, everything had meaning. These colors were more than decoration. They were born of earth, fire, and blood. The same forces that demanded survival now gave rise to expression. Night settles heavy over the land, and the tribe moves toward the cave, each torch pushing back the darkness with a fragile glow. The air grows thick with smoke, shadows stretching long and restless across the stone. In the center, one figure steps forward, hands stained with earth's colors, breath steady with purpose. Around them, the others fall into rhythm, palms clapping, stones drumming, voices chanting in tones that echo off the cavern walls. What was once a shelter becomes something greater, a hall of memory and meaning. The images painted are not idle decoration. Horses mark the wish for swiftness. Bison embodies strength. Lions carry the weight of fear. Every stroke binds the tribe together, turning survival into story and story into legacy. Amidst the towering shapes of bison and horses, a smaller figure approaches the wall. A child, guided by an elder's steady hand, places their palm against the cold stone. A hollow bone is lifted, pigment blown in a soft breath that settles around the fingers. When the hand is pulled away, an outline remains tiny, fragile, yet destined to outlast generations. In that moment, the child is no longer just an observer of survival, but a participant in memory. Their handprint joins hunters and shamans, a symbol of belonging and continuity. What survives on the stone is not just ritual, but legacy and identity etched into time, whispering across 30,000 years that even the smallest voice mattered. The fire crackles, casting restless light across the stone. In its glow, painted shapes stir to life. Horses gallop, bison lower their horns. Lions seem to prowl at the edges of the dark. The cave shifts into a theater, its walls no longer still, but alive with motion and meaning. For the tribe, this is more than vision, it is transformation. The flicker of flame turns pigment into movement, survival into story. Without a single word spoken, imagination takes its first breath. In these dancing shadows, memory escapes silence and becomes something. Eternal dot when the torches fade and silence returns. The walls still speak. Painted animals and figures are more than hunts recorded, they are memories preserved. These markings guided survival, teaching children where danger lurked and how prey moved. Yet they also reached beyond survival, transforming life into meaning. In flickering firelight, the images seemed alive, bridging the living with the unseen. This was the birth of culture, humanity crossing from existence into imagination, from struggle into remembrance, from survival into eternity. On the cave walls, hunters stand locked in battle with giants, bison, mammoths, wild horses etched. In ochre and shadow, spears fly with certainty, piercing hides that no blade could easily break. In life, the hunt was fraught with risk, where one mistake meant hunger or death. But here, on stone, the story always ends in triumph. These painted hunts were more than pictures. They were rituals, rehearsals, visions of victory carried into the real chase. The flickering firelight turned still images into living prophecy, giving courage to those who watched. In this hidden theater, failure did not exist. The hunt on the wall was eternal, and through it, humanity discovered the power to imagine survival before it began. Amid the stampede of painted bison and horses, other shapes emerged, creatures neither wholly man nor entirely beast. Human bodies crowned with antlers, faces stretched into the muzzles of lions. Figures with raised arms as if commanding unseen powers. These were not hunters captured in motion, but visions born of ritual and imagination. For the tribe, animals were never just prey. They were life givers, protectors, and dangers that demanded respect. To paint them was to speak with them, to ask for strength or forgiveness. In these forms, the boundary between human and animal dissolved. Here, in the trembling firelight, we glimpse the first myths where shamans walked as beasts, and beasts carried the spirit of gods deep within the earth, beyond the reach of daylight. The tribe stepped into hidden chambers where only torchlight dared to follow. Flames trembled against the walls, and the painted beasts seemed to stir, their shapes shifting with each flicker. Entering these spaces was not survival, it was passage into the unknown, a realm apart from daily struggle. These were no shelters of rest, but sanctuaries of spirit. Here, stone turned to story, fire to vision, and chants to prayer. In these chambers, imagination took root, and humanity first touched the invisible powers that lay beyond their fragile world. In the restless glow of fire, shadows danced, and the painted walls stirred to life. Horses seemed to charge, lions to stalk, and hunters to thrust their spears into the eternal chase. For the tribe, this was not only memory, it was myth-taking. Shaped before their eyes, flames gave the images motion, and motion gave them meaning. The cave became a stage where animals spoke as spirits, where survival became story, and the struggle of life rose into something eternal, holy, and unforgettable. When the flames dimmed, the painted walls endured, whispering questions older than memory. They were not only about the hunt, but about life, death, and the forces unseen. In these caves, survival merged with meaning. The artists were not just hunters. They were dreamers and seekers. Their colors etched into stone reveal humanity's earliest truth, that even at the dawn of time, people searched for the reason behind existence itself. Modern explorers crawl through tight passages, their lamps slicing through a darkness untouched. For millennia, then, the walls awaken ancient handprints, painted animals, and strange symbols shimmer into view. Some hands are tiny, belonging to children, others slender, traced from women. These discoveries shatter the old belief that only men created this art. In the heavy silence, voices from 30,000 years ago rise again. Each print is not just a mark, but a presence, a pulse of identity echoing through time. These caves are no longer cold stone chambers, they are galleries of humanity's first storytellers. Carved into the depths of the earth, archaeologists and historians peer into these painted chambers, searching for answers written without words. Were the images guides for the hunt, teaching young hunters how to track and strike? Were they rituals, painted to summon strength, fortune, and survival? Or perhaps they were daily records, a visual memory of life lived on the edge. Each theory brings us closer to the people who left them behind. Yet the debates reveal something greater. Even in the Stone Age, humans wrestled with the same questions we ask today. Why are we here? How do we endure? What legacy do we leave behind? Advances in science open new doors to the past. Carbon dating measures the age of pigments, while 3D scans uncover perspective and depth skills once credited only to later civilizations. Firelight itself becomes part of the discovery, revealing how shadows animated the walls, turning still images into living visions. These were no random sketches, but deliberate masterpieces, crafted with thought and care. In this light, the artists emerge not as primitive survivors, but as pioneers, visionaries who proved that imagination is as old as humanity itself. The true treasure of the caves is not the paint, but the people who left it. Their handprints match our own, bridging 30,000 years in a single touch. These shapes are not mere decoration, they are voices, silent yet alive. They remind us that humans have always longed to connect, to be remembered, to tell their story. In these echoes of stone, the first chapters of humanity still speak. The story circles back to the cave, to the faint outline of a child's hand pressed against stone. Though millennia have slipped away, the mark still lingers, as if stretching across time to touch us. This child once faced hunger, storms, and predators, yet found a way to leave something more enduring than life itself. That print is not just pigment, it is presence. It whispers across ages that the need to be remembered, to say I was here, has always been human dog, from the depths of Chauvet and Lascaux to the glow of modern theaters. The thread of storytelling has never broken. The first lines carved in stone echo through every page, canvas, and screen we know today. Whether it is graffiti scrawled across a wall or a sweeping epic projected in a cinema, the instinct remains the same: to shape meaning with images and words. The galloping horses painted by firelight live on in animation, in myth, in film. What began in caves became culture, carrying the timeless rhythm of human imagination. When the first hunters pressed red ochre against the cool walls of stone, they were not seeking beauty alone. Each painted bison, each deer frozen mid-leap, was a message carried through time. These were not decorations for idle eyes, they were survival maps, reminders of where the herd might run, warnings of the predators that circled in the dark, and encouragement for those who would face danger with nothing but a sharpened spear, and courage in their chest. In the flicker of firelight, children watched these images take shape. They listened as elders wove the meanings into memory: the shape of a hoofprint, the curve of an antler, the mark of a predator's claw. Art was a teacher, a silent guide that spoke across seasons, even when hunger pressed heavily and storms raged outside. The walls carried voices that urged them onward. Remember this path, trust this knowledge, survive. But survival alone was never enough. In these images, the tribes began to see themselves not just as hunters or wanderers, but as part of a story larger than any single life. The painted hunts were transformed into rituals, echoes of courage offered before real hunts began. The drawings became prayers, promises, and myths, threads of belief that reached toward the unseen. And so, a tribe was more than a collection of families. It was a memory kept alive through stories told again and again, through figures etched in stone and voices raised beside the fire. These were the sparks of meaning, the first whispers of gods, of ancestors, of a world where humans struggled connected to something beyond the immediate hunger of the day. From those sparks came the rise of culture itself. What began as a survival strategy grew into imagination, shaping identity and purpose. In those caves, long before the first cities, long before the first kingdoms, humanity's greatest weapon was not the stone blade or the fire brand, it was the story, carried in images and words, binding the past to the present and the living, to the yet unborn. The fire that lit those caves did more than chase away shadows, it ignited the human mind. In the shifting glow, painted herds seemed to move, predators appeared to stalk, and stone itself breathed with life. These images were not required for survival, yet our ancestors made them, proving that survival alone was never enough. They sought meaning, not just safety. In those flickering chambers, imagination was born, and storytelling became magic, turning memory into myth. To stand there today is to feel that same flame, carried across ages. The first artists lived in darkness, yet their work still burns within us, reminding us that to be human is to dream, to imagine, and to tell stories.